vision for medicines. Roby Alampay spoke to Olivier Lermet. He's with the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, and he says this is a critical pillar of any government's war on drugs. Here's part 2 of that exclusive interview.
We did put a price tag of how much those illicit business were generating. In the region, we came with the figure of about $100 billion generated, which is more than the national budget of some of the countries of the region. And out of that 100 billion, if we took heroin and ATS, amphetamine type stimulant together, it's about 30 billion. That's the first most lucrative business in town. So we have to keep that in mind. This is going to generate a persistent attempt to continue trafficking, whatever the drug law enforcement response is. So talking about the Philippines, we now have a situation where about 600,000 or 700,000, if I can trust what is reported in the press, of people who have surrendered. The first emergency is to try to assess which of those have a real drug problem, which of those are dependent, and which of those need to be oriented to services. Basically, we're talking about counseling, and counseling that leads to an interview. This is much more efficient than using any forms of drug testing, which is not completely reliable and which tell you nothing about the level of dependence and which end up costly. So this is something that is available. We already discussed that with the Philippines, and we hope that authorities would be ready to engage in making this happen. We have countries individually responding very well to this, and we hope to continue. That said, sometimes the public opinion are themselves very favorable to a very harsh approach. So there is also a need to get the public opinion on board and to try to explain and disseminate what is the evidence, because the evidence is sometimes counterintuitive from communities.
All-out wars on drugs that only see criminals and not victims can be popular, you will agree, but can pose dilemmas for human rights and public health. How can governments appreciate a more nuanced approach to drugs, particularly at an era of heightened populism?
Okay, well, I think of course, this approach can entail a number of serious human rights issues, and that's of course a concern. Well, one way to try to change the course is, of course, when governments really simply look at the evidence, simply look at who are the drug users. Drug users are in our families, they are our friends. So it's just to try to have a different perception on what is drug use, to focus on the real traffickers, because those don't deserve leniency, but try to look at the evidence. Drug use is treatable. You have many different people, ways of using drugs. And compassion is an important part of that process, but also called pragmatism. Governments should just have a look at the consequence of overburdening the prison system, completely running the judges exhausted because they don't know how to cope with the flow of all those people that they are supposed to sentence. So basically it's about being humane but also being pragmatic. Those approaches that we recommend are in fact saving a lot of resources. Money invested in health is going to result in a lot of good benefit for public security. Good public health is good public security.